The hallway smelled of bleach and fear. A nurse's hand trembled as cruel laughter echoed from behind her. She thought no one noticed her pain. But in room 214, a man with scars and leather patches on his jacket was listening. By week's end, everything would change forever. Before we begin, tell us where in the world are you watching this from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Your every comment, gift, and membership helps us bring more heart-touching stories to your life. Emily Carter had chosen nursing not for money, but for meaning. Raised by a single mother in a small Oregon town, she'd grown up watching illness eat away at the people she loved. She wanted to be someone who held hands when pain was too heavy to bear. But hospitals weren't kind places. The long nights, the endless charts, and the politics of hierarchy tested her spirit. Some senior nurses had made her their target. They mocked her shaky hands, whispered when she passed, and called her Little Florence Nightingale with a smirk. She smiled through it, but inside she felt her light dimming. Each shift, she carried the weight of patients' suffering, yet it was the cruelty of her own colleagues that left the deepest bruises. She often wondered if kindness was weakness here, if caring too much made her prey in a world that prized cold efficiency. Still, Emily kept her head down, determined to survive. On a rain-soaked Tuesday, Emily walked into room 214. The man in the bed looked like thunder wrapped in leather. Tattoos inked his arms, faded skulls, burning wheels, a banner with words she didn't understand. His knuckles were scarred, his jaw square, his hair silver but defiant. The patch folded neatly on the chair read, Hell's Angels MC. Emily hesitated. She had grown up hearing the name whispered like a warning. Outlaw bikers, dangerous men. But now one of them lay before her, an oxygen line across his chest. His name tag read Jack Mallory, 63. His eyes flickered open, piercing blue. "You're new," he rasped, voice low like gravel. Emily nodded, adjusting his IV. She expected hostility, maybe even crude jokes. Instead, silence filled the room. Jack just studied her, as though reading a truth others missed. She left the room shaken, the echo of his gaze following her down the hall. Bullying was subtle at first. A misplaced chart, a syringe hidden from her tray. Accidents, they called them, but Emily knew better. Linda, a senior nurse with 20 years under her belt, made sure of it. "Clumsy Emily," she'd whisper loud enough for others to hear. Once, in the break room, Emily dropped her coffee from trembling hands. Linda smirked. "Maybe nursing isn't for everyone. Some people just don't have the spine." Laughter followed. Emily bit her lip, cheeks hot, words trapped in her throat. She wanted to shout back, to demand respect, but fear paralyzed her. After all, Linda had allies. To challenge her meant to be crushed. That night, Emily cried in her car before driving home. No patient ever made her feel so small, yet her co-workers had turned healing into humiliation. And still she carried on, because leaving would mean giving up on the only thing she had ever truly wanted. Days passed. Jack Mallory watched everything. Emily noticed his eyes linger when others sneered at her. He said little, but his silence carried weight. One evening, after Linda left her flustered in tears over a minor chart error, Emily entered Jack's room to check his vitals. He studied her trembling hands. "They ride you hard," he muttered. She blinked, startled. "It's fine," she lied, adjusting his oxygen. Jack shook his head, lips curling in disdain. "No, it ain't fine. I know the look. Same one I saw in young prospects when old wolves tore them apart. Fear leaves scars deeper than fists." Emily stared at him, unsure how a man with his reputation could speak of wounds so familiar. Jack closed his eyes, but his words stayed. For the first time, Emily felt seen, not as weak, but as someone caught in a storm she didn't create. The cruelty escalated. Linda purposely scheduled Emily for double shifts, knowing exhaustion would make her falter. She assigned her the most difficult patients, whispered to doctors that Emily was unreliable. Once during a chaotic night, Emily spilled medication trays. Linda's voice cut through the noise. "You're a liability. Someone's going to get hurt because of you. Humiliation burned as others looked away. Emily picked up the pills with shaking hands, biting back tears. Later in Jack's room, she struggled to hide her red eyes. But Jack noticed. He didn't ask questions. Instead, he simply said, "They smell weakness like sharks smell blood. Question is, are you going to let him eat you alive?" Emily looked at him, searching for an answer. His gaze was steady, unflinching. For a man hooked to machines, Jack carried the presence of thunder. In that moment, something inside her shifted. A small flicker of defiance sparked. The hospital cafeteria buzzed with chatter. Emily sat alone, her sandwich untouched. Across the room, Linda leaned close to two other nurses, laughing as she mimed clumsy stumbles. Their eyes flicked toward Emily, then away, cruel amusement in their smiles. Shame knotted in her stomach. She wanted to vanish. Then her phone buzzed. A message from her mother. A photo of her niece drawing a stick-figure nurse with a bright red heart. She says she wants to be like Aunt Emily someday. Emily's eyes stung. The world could strip her pride, but here was a child who saw her as a hero. She wiped her tears and took a breath. When she returned to Jack's room later, she whispered almost to herself, "I can't quit." "Not yet." Jack looked at her, a slow grin forming. "Good, you've got fight. Don't let him kill it." But Linda wasn't finished. One afternoon during medication rounds, she cornered Emily near the supply closet. "You think patients don't notice? They see your mistakes. You embarrass the whole unit." Her words sliced sharper than scalpels. Emily tried to slip past, but Linda blocked her. "Do us all a favor and resign before you kill someone." Emily froze, pulse racing. She wanted to scream, but the words choked. Then Jack's deep voice echoed down the hall. "Nurse Carter," he called, loud enough for heads to turn. Linda stepped back, startled. Emily excused herself, hurrying to his room. When she entered, Jack's eyes burned. "Don't ever let a vulture feed off you." "You're better than that." Emily swallowed hard, torn between fear and gratitude. She didn't know it yet, but Jack had already decided. This cruelty would end. Rumors spread like wildfire. Jack wasn't just any patient. He was a former chapter president of the Hells Angels. His name carried weight in biker circles across 3 states. Some staff whispered fearfully when they saw men in leather jackets visiting him at night, silent shadows guarding their fallen brother. Emily overheard Linda scoff. Figures she'd cozy up to that criminal. Birds of a feather. But Emily knew the truth. Jack had shown her more respect in 2 weeks than Linda had in months. One evening she asked him quietly, "Why do you care?" Jack's gaze softened. "Because once, a nurse like you saved me when no one else would. And because I don't stand by while good people get crushed." His words etched into her heart. She realized then, sometimes angels didn't wear white. Sometimes they rode steel horses. The breaking point came during a stormy night shift. The ER flooded with patients after a highway accident. Emily worked tirelessly, moving between rooms, sweat and fear clinging to her skin. In the chaos, she mixed up 2 charts for a moment, but caught herself instantly fixing the error before harm could happen. Still, Linda pounced. "Are you insane? You nearly killed that man." She shouted in front of doctors, families, and staff. The room went silent. Emily's chest tightened, shame flooding her. She opened her mouth to defend herself, but no words came. Linda's voice dripped poison. "You don't belong here." Emily felt the walls close in, humiliation suffocating her. She wanted to disappear, until a sudden sound cut through the tension. Jack's gravelly voice thundered from his doorway. "That's enough." Every head turned. Jack Mallory stood, frail yet unyielding, gripping the doorway with one scarred hand. His hospital gown hung loose, his IV pole rattling beside him. Yet his presence filled the hall like a storm rolling in. His eyes blazed as they locked on Linda. "I've watched you tear her apart for weeks. That ends now." Gasps rippled through the staff. Linda sputtered, "You don't know what you're talking about. She's incompetent." Jack raised a hand, silencing her. No, she's the only one here who treats people like they matter. She's the reason I'm still breathing. And if I hear one more word out of you, his voice dropped low and lethal, you'll answer me and every brother who walks through these doors. The hallway went still, fear and awe colliding. For the first time, Emily didn't feel small. She felt protected. The hallway buzzed with whispers after Jack's outburst. Doctors pretended to busy themselves, but their eyes betrayed unease. Linda's face flushed crimson. She forced a laugh. You think anyone's afraid of some washed-up biker? But her voice wavered. Jack's gaze didn't blink. He leaned heavily on his IV pole, breath ragged, yet his presence dwarfed the room. Lady, he said, voice steady, I've seen more respect in back-alley bars than what you've shown here. Nurses like her keep this place human. You just poison it. Silence blanketed the corridor. Emily stood frozen, heart pounding. She had spent months swallowing insults, too afraid to speak. Now someone else had given her voice. Jack nodded toward her. Hold your head high, girl. You're not their punching bag. You're a healer. Don't let them forget it. His words settled like armor across her chest. For the first time, Emily believed them. The storm outside raged, thunder shaking the windows. Emily guided Jack back into his room, helping him into bed. His strength was fading, but his eyes still sparked. You didn't have to do that, she whispered. He grinned faintly. Yeah, I did. People like Linda get too comfortable stomping on others. Someone's got to draw the line. Emily sat beside him, trembling. No one had ever defended her so fiercely. What if they retaliate? What if it gets worse? She asked. Jack coughed, his voice rasping. Then you stand taller. People smell fear, but they also feel strength. You give them that, they'll back down. Emily studied him, realizing he wasn't just talking about bullies in a hospital. He was talking about life, about the battles he'd fought in dark alleys, on long highways, in places where survival wasn't guaranteed. And in that dim-lit hospital room, she vowed she would no longer shrink. But Linda wasn't finished. The next day, she spread rumors. She's only getting by because her biker boyfriend scares us, she sneered in the break room. Others laughed nervously, though some looked uneasy. When Emily walked in, the chatter stopped. She felt eyes pierce her back like knives. Her throat tightened. For a moment, doubt crept in. What if they were right? Was she only standing because Jack held her up? That evening, she confessed her fear to him. Jack smirked, shaking his head. I ain't your crutch, girl. I'm just the match. You're the fire. His words sank deep, warming the cracks inside her. Emily realized she couldn't rely on him forever. One day soon he'd leave this hospital one way or another. When that time came, she would need to stand alone. But tonight she let herself rest in the safety of his belief. It was enough to keep fighting. Emily began to change. She held her shoulders straighter, her voice steadier. When Linda barked an order, Emily answered calmly, no tremor in her tone. She started eating lunch with younger nurses, who admired her quiet resilience. Slowly their laughter shifted, from mocking her to mocking the absurdity of Linda's cruelty. Even doctors noticed. Dr. Patel pulled her aside. You've got heart, Emily. Don't let anyone steal that. His words reinforced the armor Jack had given her. That night, she told Jack about it. He chuckled, coughing hard but grinning. See? Respect grows when you stop handing it away. Emily smiled, realizing something profound. Kindness wasn't weakness. It was strength, sharper than any insult. And though Jack's body grew frailer, his spirit lit her path. She didn't know it yet, but she was becoming the very nurse she had once dreamed of being, the kind her niece might someday become. A week later, a group of bikers arrived, leather vests heavy with patches, engines rumbling outside like thunder. They filled the hallway, intimidating and silent. Nurses and doctors stiffened, eyes wide. Jack's brothers had come to see him. Emily braced herself, unsure what to expect. But when they entered his room, their hard faces softened. They clasped Jack's hand, whispered respect, and nodded gratefully toward Emily. "He says you've been looking after him," one murmured. Emily swallowed, nodding. They turned to her, eyes steady. "You ever need anything, you've got family now." Fear rippled through the staff watching, but Emily felt something else, belonging. Not because of intimidation, but because even these hardened men valued what she had given Jack: dignity, care, humanity. For the first time, she realized her kindness had ripple effects far beyond hospital walls. It reached even those the world called untouchable. Linda fumed. "This is a hospital, not a clubhouse." She snapped at administration, furious over the bikers' presence. But administrators wary of conflict tread lightly. Whispers spread among the staff. Was Emily truly under Jack's protection? Some treated her with new respect, though begrudgingly. Others avoided her altogether. Emily remained steady. She didn't flaunt Jack's defense. Instead, she leaned into her work, proving competence through quiet consistency. When a frightened child needed calming before surgery, she held his hand until he smiled. When an elderly patient refused food, she patiently coaxed him with gentle words. Kindness became her rebellion. Jack watched proudly, though his cough worsened. "Told you," he rasped one night. "Strength ain't about fists. It's about standing when they expect you to fall." Emily squeezed his hand, tears burning her eyes. She feared time was slipping. Jack had given her courage, but she knew she might soon lose him. One dawn, Emily entered Jack's room to find him struggling for breath, his chest rattling. Alarms beeped, doctors rushed in. Emily stood back, helpless as they worked. Minutes later, silence fell. Jack lay pale but peaceful, his hand limp in hers. Grief punched through her chest. She whispered, "Thank you," voice breaking. Later, as the sun rose, she stepped outside the hospital. The parking lot shimmered with chrome. Dozens of bikers waiting, engines rumbling low like mourning drums. They weren't there for violence. They were there for Jack. And when they saw Emily, something remarkable happened. They lined up, heads bowed, and one by one, each clasped her shoulder in silent gratitude. Tears blurred her vision. She realized then Jack hadn't just given her strength. He had passed it to an entire brotherhood, who now saw her as family. She was no longer alone. The funeral was held under a vast Oregon sky. Hundreds of riders thundered down the highway, a sea of leather and steel stretching for miles. Emily stood among them, a simple black dress fluttering in the wind. She had never been part of something so immense, so raw. When the service ended, one biker handed her Jack's patch, folded carefully. "He wanted you to have this," the man said. Emily's hands trembled as she accepted it. She clutched the patch to her chest, feeling the weight of legacy, of protection, of belief. Tears streamed down her cheeks, but beneath them lay pride. Jack's voice echoed in her memory. "Don't let him kill your fire." That night, she pinned the patch inside her locker, not as a symbol of fear, but of strength. Every shift thereafter, it reminded her she was no longer prey. She was a healer with steel in her soul. Months passed. Emily became known across the hospital, not as the timid girl Linda mocked, but as the nurse patients requested by name. Her gentleness drew trust. Her steadiness calmed storms. Linda, bitter and exposed, found her power fading. Fewer joined her whispers. Eventually, she transferred to another unit. Emily didn't gloat. She simply kept working, quiet and steady, carrying both scars and strength. Sometimes on long shifts, she'd touch the patch hidden in her locker, grounding herself in the memory of the man who had taught her dignity. She still cried when she thought of Jack, but the tears no longer felt like weakness. They were fuel, proof that kindness and courage could coexist. And every so often, a rumble of Harleys passed by the hospital at night. Brothers riding slow, headlights dipping in silent salute. Each time Emily smiled, feeling Jack's spirit near. One evening, Emily walked out of the hospital after a grueling shift. The sky burned gold with sunset. She paused, listening as distant engines echoed faintly on the horizon. Instead of fear, she felt comfort, like a heartbeat reminding her she wasn't alone. She thought of her niece, who once drew a stick-figure nurse with a heart. Now Emily knew what legacy she wanted to leave, not just as a nurse who healed bodies, but as a woman who stood tall against cruelty, who turned scars into strength. She whispered into the breeze, "Thank you, Jack." And as she walked to her car, a single Harley roared past, the rider raising 2 fingers in salute. Emily smiled through tears, shoulders straight, her fire unbroken. For the first time she felt whole, and the world finally felt hers to heal. If this story touched your heart, let it remind you, kindness is not weakness. It's the strongest armor we have. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and press the bell icon, so you never miss another tale of courage, compassion, and unexpected brotherhood. Your support keeps these stories alive.